Assalamu alaikum guys, and welcome back to our show, Is God in Hellfire? So in today's episode, we'll be discussing the concept of free will and predestination. But before we go into that subject, I'd just like to welcome our guests, Brother Ghadeer, Brother 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦, Brother 𝗡𝗢𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗡𝗦, familiar faces that appeared in our previous show. And I do recommend you guys to watch the previous show. We did cover quite a bit. So nevertheless, I'm going to pass on to Brother 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦 because recently there were some objections raised about our previous video. So I think it's important that we clear these misconceptions and these accusations that were made against us. So without further ado, I want to bring on Brother 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦. Brother 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦, I'm going to hand over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me okay? So, I went on a particular group's show in order to discuss the eternity of the Quran. Do you believe, yes or no, that the Quran is eternal? So, as most people understand it, the Sunni sect believes that the Quran is eternal. This is their famous position. However, as I was discussing with them, they said, in fact, that I was wrong. It is not the Sunni position that the Quran is eternal. So, how did they object to this? They said that the early Salaf were of the opinion that the Quran is muhdath, originated, ghayr-makhluq, not created, but yet eternal at the same time, or yet not eternal at the same time. So what they believe, that the early Salaf believed, that the Quran is originated and not eternal. I would just like to point out that I am doing this for the sake of information being spread in the correct way. It doesn't really matter if they say, oh, the Salaf believe this. What we are discussing now, what is the majority belief amongst the Sunni sect? The Asha'ira and the Maturidi schools make up the majority of the Sunnis. So it's really dishonest for them to say, well, you know, the early Salaf believed this. We are not talking about the early Salaf. We are talking about the majority of Sunnis today. However, because they really pushed for this, I'm actually going to go into the quotes from their biggest scholars on this matter, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, al-Dhahabi, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗡𝗦, and many other scholars. We're going to go and see what they said regarding this. So I'm going to play the audio of this person who claimed that, actually, you know what? I'm not going to play the audio. You guys can go back and see what they said. Basically, he said that the Quran is muhdath. It's originated. It's not eternal. So let us go through the statements of their scholars to see if that is the case. This is what the early Salaf believed. So I'm going to share my screen now so you guys can see. And with God's help, inshallah, we are going to get to the bottom of this. And we're going to see what is truly the position of the early Salaf regarding this. So I begin in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Ya Allah, send your blessings upon Rasulullah and upon his holy Ahlul Bayt and upon his righteous companions. So let's continue with the discussion. So al-Dhahabi says in his Sir A'lam al-Nubala, he says on page 290, volume 12, he says, and the madhab, a school of thought of Dawood al-Zahiri and his group said that the Quran is the Kalam of Allah, the speech of Allah, and that it is muhdath, while at the same time stating that it is not makhluq. So there was a group who said the same thing that these people are saying back then. So we read in the same book on the same page, Dhahabi says, and the rest of the Hanabila and those other than them state that the Quran is the eternal speech of Allah, and it is not makhluq, nor is it muhdath. And they, the Hanabila, have stated that if it is not makhluq, then it is eternal. So al-Dhahabi, who is clearly more of an authority than these people, have stated that the Hanabila have indeed believed, or do indeed believe, that the Quran is eternal. Let's continue with the same book, page 510, volume 11. He says, there was a sect who claimed that the Quran is muhdath, such as Dawood al-Zahiri. and those who followed him. So Ahmad ibn Hanbal considered them from Ahl al-Bid'ah. So Ahmad here considered them from Ahl al-Bid'ah. He did not consider them to be from from Ahl al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. He considered them to be from the people of fabricators, people who go against Ahl al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So the exact same thing that these people are saying, there was actually a sect who Ahmad ibn Hanbal refuted. The exact same thing they say in the video, that it's makhluq, or sorry, it's not makhluq, it's muhdath, and it's not eternal. Well, Ahmad is refuting. The only difference between this person, Dawood, and these people, Dawood says it's eternal. So that's the only difference between them and them. So what these people who claim who have knowledge, they're stating something even worse than Dawood al-Zahiri. So let's see what Ahmad ibn Hanbal says. And his Ar-Raddu ala al-Jahmiyya, a book which has been authentically attributed to Ahmad by Ibn Taymiyyah. So Ahmad, he says, and they imagined that from the ayah, مَا يَأْتِيهِم مِّن ذِكْرٍ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ مُحْدَثٍ, and there does not come from them a statement from Allah which is muhdath. So Ahmad is saying that they imagine that from this ayah, from this verse, that Allah is saying that the Quran is muhdath. He refutes them. What does he say? He says, and every muhdath is makhluq. So if you're going to say that the verse here, مَا يَأْتِيهِم مِّن ذِكْرٍ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ مُحْدَثٍ, if you're going to say that this verse here refers to the Quran as muhdath, then really you're saying it's makhluq, and you're going against what the Ahl Sunnah believe. Let's continue. Al-Dhahabi says in the same book, page 288, volume 11, he says, Ishaq ibn Ibrahim al-Baghawi heard Ahmad ibn Hanbal say, whoever says the Quran is created is a kafir. And he heard Salma ibn Shabib say that Ahmad ibn Hanbal say this, and it is mutawatir, meaning widely reported from him. And Ismail al-Tirmidhi said he heard Ahmad ibn Hanbal say, whoever says the Quran is muhdath is a kafir. So according to Ahmad, you guys are kuffar, because you're saying the Quran is muhdath. Let's continue. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he says in his Fath al-Bari, page 499, volume 13, he says, there is no difference between makhluq and hadith, neither intellectually, nor textually, nor in common usage. Ad-Darimi, he says in his refutation, he says on page 546, there is no doubt that every muhdath originated is makhluq. So there's no difference between saying muhdath and makhluq. Let's continue. Al-Ash'ari, he says in his Maqalat, page 541, he says, and the people of knowledge have agreed that the meaning of muhdath is the same meaning as makhluq, and the meaning of makhluq is the same meaning as muhdath. So Al-Ash'ari is here saying there is no difference. Let's continue. Al-Dhahabi in his book Al-Ulu on page 150 with a sahih chain from Abi Hatim, who said that Muhammad ibn Fadl said that Abu Muhammad al-Maruzi said he heard Al-Harith say while he was with Fudayl. What did he say? He said, whoever thinks or imagines that the Quran is muhdath, then he has committed kufr. And whoever imagines that it is not from the knowledge of Allah, then he is a corrupt sinner. Fudayl then said, I affirm this. These guys are from the Salaf. All these people are from the Salaf, including Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who is considered the Imam of the Salaf. Let's continue. Waqi', he says in his book As-Sunnah, Abdullah ibn Ahmad says in his book As-Sunnah, he's quoting Waqi' here. So he says, whoever imagines thinks that the Quran is makhluq, then he has imagined thinks that the Quran is muhdath. And whoever imagines that the Quran is muhdath, then he has committed kufr. The researcher of this book says the chain is authentic. The chain is sahih. This has been authentically reported from Waqi'. Same reference, Abdullah ibn Ahmad, from Ahmad ibn Ibrahim, from Abu Ja'far al-Suwaidi, that he heard that it was said to Waqi', that he heard that there is a person who says that the Quran is muhdath. So he heard someone say that to him. And then he said, Subhanallah, from this kufr. This chain is authentic. This is authentically reported from Waqi'. The researcher says the chain is authentic. So let's move on. Al-Imam al-Lalaka'i, he says in his Sharh al-Sunnah, page 78, he says, contextually, what is narrated from the Prophet is what points to the Quran being from the attributes of Allah and eternal. So 𝗦𝗨𝗥𝗕𝗘𝗘 is clearly stating, I'm sorry if I said his name wrong, so it's kind of written weird in the English here. So what he's saying is that the Quran is eternal. It is from the attributes of a God. So 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗡𝗦 says in his book Sharh 𝗡𝗢𝗧𝗏, page 188, that he says Ahl Sunnah, all of them from the four schools of thought, from the Salaf and the later scholars, are in agreement that the speech of Allah is not created. However, the later scholars started arguing in regards with the speech of Allah. Is the speech of Allah one meaning which exists in the essence of Allah? Or is it letters and sounds which Allah has spoken after being a non-speaker? Or was he eternally speaking how he wishes? I'm going to skip all this and basically go to where he says, and the speech of Imam 𝗡𝗢𝗧𝗏𝗡 clearly indicates that Allah has always remained a speaker when he wishes and how he wishes, and that the nature of Allah's speech is eternal. So, I mean, we can clearly see here that the early Salaf believed that the Quran is muhdath. It is not makhluq, and it is not non-eternal. It is eternal, not makhluq and not muhdath. So they reject both of those. They say it's eternal. It's not originated. So here are all the names of the scholars from the Salaf who basically believe that the Quran is eternal. الشافعي, فضيل ibn Iyad, الحارث ibn Umair, Hisham ibn 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗡𝗦. Look at all these scholars, 𝗦𝗨𝗐𝗍𝗔, all of these people.
So I don't want to interrupt you there, Shadi.
Sure.
So, now the thing is that, I mean, they brought up a statement of Jamia. What was that statement? I mean, did he actually say this? I mean, you did mention that there may have been some people who brought up this opinion that it was originated, similar to what Ahlul Bayt Islam said. I mean, isn't it ironic that they had to bring up those very same traditions that we brought up in order to prove our position that the Quran is something which is originated, even though this is something which is not even supported in their own literature? But coming back to the point, why did they bring up Ibn Taymiyyah? Did he actually say this? I mean, what's the situation there?
So Ibn Taymiyyah has a famous habit where he will claim ijma' on something, consensus on something where there isn't. So Ibn Taymiyyah will says, "Oh, there's consensus among the scholars that this is what is said," and in fact there isn't any ijma' on it. This is well known even among Salafi scholars. They say this. Ibn Taymiyyah has a habit of saying, "Oh, the Salaf said this, the Salaf said that," and in fact they didn't say that. So these people who claim they're researchers, they clearly didn't. I mean, maybe they knew that, maybe they didn't, but obviously if you know Ibn Taymiyyah, then you should have known that you have to check what he says. You can't just take his word for it, because many times he will claim something that's not true. He'll claim, "Oh, there is ijma' on this and consensus on this and the Salaf said that." Well, not always. A lot of times he's incorrect on that statement. So when I was on the show, if you guys can watch these particular people's show, they responded to us. Just look at the response videos from their group. I asked him, "You say that the Quran is muhdath and not makhluq?" He says yes. I asked him, "Well, then why do you say that? Why isn't it created but originated? What's the difference?" He says, "Well, it's my theology." And then I ask him again, "Okay, well, it's your theology. Well, tell me why you say that." He goes, "Because the Quran didn't say so." That's his answer. Imagine I'm an atheist and I come up to you. Imagine, and I ask you, you say the Quran is originated but not created, and I ask you for proof, and you tell me, "Oh, because my book said so." Do you think that will suffice? You think that is going to be a logical statement? No, you have to use your mind. You have to use logic. You can't just say, "Oh, because the Quran said so." By the way, the Quran does say the Quran is created. The Quran says that everything is created by Allah. Everything is brought into existence by Allah. My question to you is this, my friend: is the Quran a thing? Isn't the Quran something? You said that the Quran is muhdath, therefore it isn't Allah. Okay, very well. If you state that, then Allah says, "I created all things," so everything besides God is created. So how can you say that the Quran is muhdath while at the same time not makhluq, in the sense of that it is, the sense that the Quran has this term makhluq, that Allah created it. How can you say that? How can you say that? What our Imams have stated is that the Quran is originated, not created. They say not created because the word makhluq, if you apply it to kalam, according to them, the Imams, it means that it is fabricated. This is one of the meanings of the word makhluq, something being makhluq. Yani something being mukhtalaq, something being faked, something being fabricated. So this is why the Imams have clarified their position, and this is why they said that, okay, it is originated, not created. However, if you want to say the meaning of createdness is that of beginningness, you can say that. It's no problem. The Imams even use the word, makhluq. It's not an issue. So it just depends on what you mean. So I'm gonna go to the first argument because he thought he refuted all my syllogisms. So we're gonna go through it and we're gonna see, did he really do that? Did he really affirm, or did he really complete that objective? Let's see. Okay. So what does he say to me? He says to me, I have not proven that only God is eternal. Imagine someone saying that. You are a Muslim and you believe that it's not proven that only God is eternal? So what's the point of debating me if you really believe that? What's the point? What is the point of having your show if you believe that there can exist other things besides Allah which are eternal? You yourself have affirmed a statement of kufr. You are saying that there are things besides God which are eternal. So, my friend, if you believe that, then honestly, with all due respect, it's better off that you become a Hindu or a Christian, because that's what Christians and Hindus believe. Christians make the excuse of the Trinity, but they do believe that there are other eternals besides God. We as Muslims believe that only Allah is eternal. This is what the belief of the Shia is. Only Allah is eternal. Nothing else besides God is eternal. Everything besides God has a beginning. This is the belief of Ahl Islam. This is the belief of the Shia. And this is the belief of Ahl Bayt Islam. Nothing besides Allah has eternity with God. God is the only necessary existent. I'm very surprised that he said that. I listened to it twice because I couldn't believe it. And I mean, really, do you really believe that? So I'm going to prove it. Look, I have to prove it to him. I'm going to prove it to him. So though Allah says in the Quran, I created all things. Okay. If God created all things, therefore, all things besides God has a starting point. And if all things besides Allah has a starting point, then only Allah is eternal. Simple as that. So there's really nothing else to be said about that point. I'm very surprised that he said that. And then he says, well, it's not proven that the Quran is eternal. Oh, I've just proven that. That's what your Salaf believed. But let's say I'm wrong. Let's say, okay, I'm sorry, the Salaf didn't believe that. I made up the quotes. 𝗧𝗏𝗍𝗍 is wrong. Ibn Hajar is wrong. All the statements that I made about Ahmed ibn Hanbal and 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗓 and all these scholars, there's something wrong with the chain. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. Even though there's an entire book on it, by the way. It's all wrong. Habibi, we are talking about the majority of Ahl Sunnah. And the majority of Ahl Sunnah are the 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦 and the maturidiyya. These guys make up the majority of your sect. They, according to me and you, they say the Quran is eternal. And we're going to show a statement by Ibn Taymiyyah which says exactly that. Ibn Taymiyyah himself says that the Quran, according to the 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦, is eternal. So, let us go through his objections. He says, all things besides Allah is created. This is what I'm saying. So all things besides Allah is created. Allah says in the Quran that He created all things. If all things besides Allah is created, then all things besides Allah has a starting point. And if all things besides Allah has a starting point, then only Allah is eternal. This is common sense. He said, oh, you're using common sense. You can't use common sense. Habibi, if you can't understand common sense, how are you going to understand logical argumentation, rational discussion? He needs me to explain to him, oh, I have to prove it. I have to prove this. I have to prove that. If you can't understand simple 1 + 1 = 2, then you have no room to be talking about logic. He says, oh, this person doesn't understand logic. Yet at the same time, he says that it's not common sense. This right here is not common sense. Let's go on. As I said before, the argument itself is irrelevant, since the Ash'ari and the Maturidi sect, who make up the majority of the Sunni scholars, do in fact state, according to both the Sunni defense team and our team, that the Quran is eternal. Conclusion: our opponents have failed to refute the statement that the Sunnis believe that the Quran is God. So let's go back. Only God is eternal. We have proven that. Number two, the Quran is eternal, according to the Ash'ari and the Maturidiyya and the Salaf, who I've shown. So that's the first syllogism. I'm going to go to the next one with the help of God. So what did he state? He stated that the words of Allah are not his eternal speech. Let's see if that's true. So the words of Allah are his eternal speech. This is what I stated, that what they believe. So what about the majority of Sunni scholars from the Ash'ari and the Maturidiyya? What do they state? Let's look at what Ibn Taymiyyah states. He states, this is Ibn Taymiyyah in his book Majmu' al-Fatawa. He says, the followers of the Salaf say that the Kalam of Allah is qadim, meaning that Allah remains eternally a speaker if he wishes. They do not say, however, that the specific words itself is eternal, like the call to Musa and that which is similar. So what is he saying? Ibn Taymiyyah believes that Allah has remained mutakallim throughout eternity. So every second, Allah is speaking a word. Allah is speaking, Allah is creating, or rather speaking speech. Ibn Taymiyyah does not believe that speech itself is eternal, but rather Allah is constantly bringing new speech. That's what he stated. This is what that means here. So let's continue with what Ibn Taymiyyah says. He says, لكن هؤلاء يعني الأشاعرة ومن وافقهم. He says these people, meaning the Asha'ira, believe that the Quran and the rest of the kalam of the speech of Allah is essentially eternal, qadim al-ayn. Kalam وسائر kalam Allah qadim al-ayn, and that he does not speak with his power nor will. So Ibn Taymiyyah clearly states that the Asha'ira believe that the speech of Allah is eternal, that the speech of Allah has always existed, it has always been there. So the first point is wrong. That is, his contention against this first point is wrong. The Asha'ira do in fact believe that the words of Allah are his eternal speech, and this is a very famous position of them. And the Asha'ira and the Maturidiyya are the majority of the Sunni ulama, and this is the orthodox school. So yes, most of Sunnis do believe that this first point is valid. Let's go to the second point. He says that I did not understand the ayah when Allah said Jesus is kalimatullah. Okay, let's go to the second point and see what he says. He says, the opponent claims that the second premise is misunderstood. This is me saying about him, actually. The opponent claims that the second premise is misunderstood, that Jesus is only called the kalima of Allah because the word kun caused him to exist. This argument has been used by Sunni commentators in order to disassociate Jesus being the spoken kalam of Allah. They do this in order to not fall into contradiction by stating that the Quran is the eternal speech of Allah, while at the same time Jesus being the word of Allah. So what is he stating? He said, no, you're wrong. He said, you're wrong. I didn't understand the verse where Allah calls Jesus the kalima of Allah. Jesus is only called the kalima of Allah because the kalam of Allah caused him to exist. Does this make sense? Let us see. Let us see. Allah says in the Quran, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, la taghlu fi dinakum. O Ahl al-Kitab, do not exaggerate in your religion. إنما المسيح عيسى ابن مريم رسول الله وكلمته ألقاها إلى مريم. ألقاها إلى مريم means what? A word. So Jesus is a word which Allah has placed inside Mary. So Jesus is a word which Allah has placed directly inside Mary. So what is Allah saying? Jesus is called directly the messenger of Allah and the kalima of Allah. So what is this kalima? What is this kalima that Allah is talking about? Let's see what 𝗧𝗦𝗣𝗑𝗕𝗘 says about what Qatada says. Who is Qatada? Qatada is a early from the I believe the second generation from the Salaf. So let's see what 𝗧𝗦𝗣𝗑𝗕 says about him. 𝗧𝗦𝗣𝗑𝗕 says about him in his Sir A'lam al-Nubala, he says he is a proof, hujjah, by consensus, if it is established that he is heard from. So whenever Qatada says something and it is established that he really said it, it is a proof by consensus. So what does Qatada say? Let's see. We read from the tafsir of Tabari. We read. What does he say? He says, حدثنا به الحسن ابن يحيى قال أخبرنا عبد الرزاق قال أخبرنا معمر عن قتادة وكلمته ألقاها إلى مريم قال هو قوله كن فكان. So what does he say? He says the word here كلمته ألقاها إلى مريم is the word kun. وقوله كن فكان. The word kun here is what is being referred to as the kalima. This is the kalima that Allah is talking about. This is the kalima that Allah placed inside Mary. This is what Qatada is saying. So I have a question. Is this word kun, is this a spoken word and thus literal speech of Allah? Let us see. Let us see. Let's look at the Quran. Allah says, إنما قولنا لشيء إذا أردناه أن نقول له كن فيكون. Indeed, our word to a thing when we intend it is, but we say to it, be, and it is. What is Allah saying? Allah is saying kun. He's speaking the word. He is speaking the word kun, be. Allah is saying, I say it. Therefore, it is speech. You can't just disassociate it because you don't like it. Allah is clearly saying that I am saying the word kun. Alqaha ila Maryam. He placed it inside Mary. This is what the Quran is saying. You can't just bring a tafsir from Ibn Kathir and say, oh, this is what our scholars believe. No, Habibi, you have to go into the Quran and prove it. You have to go into the Quran and show us. You have not done that. So Allah clearly says in the Quran that He speaks the word kun, and thus the word kun is spoken, and that which is spoken is speech. Therefore, the word kun is the speech of Allah. So what have we concluded here? We've concluded that Jesus is the kalima of Allah, according to everybody. We have shown that the kalima which is used is kun. Kun, be. What is kun? It is the spoken speech or the kalam of Allah, because Allah clearly says here that I am saying this word. So, what else? I have another argument against him, which is, it's just a rational argument. It doesn't need any reference to the Quran. What does he say? He says that, well, Jesus isn't literally the kalam of Allah. He is only called that as a title because he was created by the kalam of Allah. This is my objection. It does not follow rationally that the effect should or could be labeled by the cause, neither metaphorically nor literally. The instrumental cause of kun, causing Jesus, does not follow that Jesus is now the kalam of Allah if it is stated that the relationship is only in regards to causality. That's what do I mean in plain English? Here we go. We have an instrumental cause here, fire. Okay. Remember, Allah is the ultimate cause. So this is why I'm using instrumental cause. The kalam of Allah, according to the Quran and according to the team who was responding to us, they say that Allah created Isa by his kalam, meaning the kalam of Allah is the instrumental cause. So let's look at an example here. We have an instrumental cause of fire. This is the effect. Can you in any world, in any possible world, say that this house can now be labeled fire? Or that this house is metaphorically called fire? Or that this house is literally fire? It does not follow. And the reason why they state this is because they are trying to avoid a contradiction between stating the Quran is eternal and stating that Jesus is the kalam of Allah. They try to run away from this. They couldn't, because logically and even textually, you cannot escape the fact that if you do indeed call Jesus the Kalam of Allah, you are saying he's Allah. If you do indeed state that the Kalam of Allah is eternal, because only God is eternal. So, what else? Let's go back to the syllogism. Let's go back to the syllogism. So, number one, the words of Allah are His eternal speech. We've proven that. The Asha'ira say that. If you guys want to say that the Salaf didn't believe that, you know what? I concede that point. No problem. The Salaf never said that, but the majority of Sunni scholars today do indeed, in fact, say that the words of Allah are His eternal speech. Second point. Jesus is the word of Allah. As we've just proven, that Jesus is literally the Kalam of Allah. Jesus is the Kalimatullah. And number three, it follows logically that Jesus is the eternal speech of Allah. You have failed to answer the syllogism, and you have failed to answer this argument. So let us continue. Let us continue. He didn't include this in his video. He left this part out. So this is a part of the first argument. Only God is eternal. Number two, Jesus is the eternal speech of Allah, as we have shown. Premise number three, Jesus is God. You cannot escape this argument. You cannot escape the syllogism. You're trying your hardest, but every time you explain more, you're throwing yourself into more confusion and contradiction, my friend. And that is the problem we have with you guys. Whenever you guys want to explain something and you can't get out of it, you'll quickly change your position or state that we didn't understand it. So, I mean, that is not how you argue. So, let us start with the last argument. And then I'm going to give it to you guys, inshallah, because I've been talking a lot. So,
no problem, bro. You can carry on.
Sure. So, last syllogism. What does he say? He says that Ahl Sunnah have contested this premise for 1,000 years. What? Ahl Sunnah have contested this premise, this first premise here, for 1,000 years. What is this first premise that they're contesting? The attributes of Allah are not the same as Allah's essence. They say that they never claimed that. Okay, let's go to what you guys stated. Let's go. Did you guys really never claim that? Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Can you hear me without the mic plugged in?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So I'm going to play his video. And we're going to see what he says.
Out there that have a belief in an eternal creator. However, the eternal creator that Muslims believe in, the eternal being that the Muslims believe in, has qualities. And the sifat al-ma'ani for him are that he is hayy, he is living, he is Ghadeer, he is powerful, he is murid, he is a willer, he is alim, a knower, alim, sami', basir, hearer and seer, and mutakallim, speaker. So the Mu'tazila and the Shia denied all of these sifats, okay, which is why they call them out, saying that they are one and the same as his essence. They said that.
So we denied the attributes of Allah because we are stating that they are one and the same as the essence. What does my first premise state? The attributes of Allah are not the same as Allah's essence. I have clearly stated what you guys believe. If you guys are unprofessional and disorganized and you don't know what one person is saying, you don't know what the other person is saying, that's not my problem. That is not my problem. You have one person saying one thing and you have another person saying another thing, and they're trying to debate us upon this argument. You guys jump like a rabbit from one point to another point to one position from another position. It's as if they went, oh guys, you know what, he's asking us whether or not the Quran is created. What does Ibn Taymiyyah say? I wonder. Oh, let's go. It's as if they just like that just accepted it, and they don't really know the implications of what they've accepted. So let's see what else he says.
that these sifat, these attributes, are the exact same thing as God's essence. They're not separate from it, is what they say.
So let me plug it back in. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you fine.
So it's the Shia who say that God's attributes are the same as his essence, not Ahl Sunnah. So, no, my friend, it is not contested. From your own mouths, you have stated that the first premise is what you believe. What does the Asha'ira say? What does the Asha'ira say? Let's see. So, he says, Al-Fadl ibn Rusbahan, he says in his book of Kalam, مذهب الأشاعرة إنه تعالى له صفات موجودة قديمة زائدة على الذات فهو عالم بعلم وقادر بقدرة ومريد بإرادة ثم ذهب إلى أن معنى زيادة على الذات هو لا هي عين الذات ولا غيرها. What is he stating? He says that the madhab of the Asha'ira is that Allah has attributes. What are his attributes? They are existing, they are eternal, and they are additional to his essence. زائدة على ذاته. Habibi, if something is additional to the essence of Allah, it is not the essence of Allah. فهو عالم بعلم وقادر بقدرة. He is عالم he is a knower by knowledge. So he's saying that God has knowledge, which is additional to his essence. وقادر بقدرة, and he's powerful by power, not his essence. He's not saying by his essence, he's saying by something called power, which is زائدة على ذاته, something which is additional to his essence. ومريد بإرادة, and he is a willer by a will. So apparently now there exists a will. What does he say? He says ثم ذهب إلى أن معنى الزيادة على الذات هو لا هي عين الذات ولا غيرها. He says clearly here, what does he say? He says it is not the same as the essence of Allah, nor is it different from it. So basically, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari is making a contradicting statement, but we're going to get to that. So we do know for sure that he says لا هي عين الذات, it is not the same as the that of Allah. What does Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari say? He says الباري تعالى عالم بالعلم قادر بقدرة حي بحياة وهذه الصفات أزلية قائمة بذاته تعالى لا هي هو ولا هي غيره. So what does he say? He says الباري تعالى عالم بعلم. God, like I said before, God is knowledgeable with knowledge, powerful with power, حي بحياة وهذه الصفات, these attributes are eternal, قائمة بذاته تعالى, arising from his essence, coming from his essence, being associated with his essence. However, he says لا هي هو, it is not his essence, ولا هي غيره, it is not disassociated with his essence. So let's look at this statement, what he's saying, Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. The statement of Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari contradicts itself, obviously, because if you say that, okay, the attributes are not the essence, nor are they not the essence, that's a contradiction. But that's not a problem. That is not an issue. Let's say it doesn't contradict. Let's say it's completely acceptable. No problem. This contradiction, however, is irrelevant, since he does indeed affirm the statement, the essence of Allah is not the same as his attributes. Thus, even if he contradicts this statement with a paradox inclusion, the affirmation of the specific statement allows us in logic to use it as a premise. What do I mean by that in clear English? I'll give you an example. Here is a contradicting statement. I say John is blue, but John is not blue. Even though this statement is contradictory, the statement John is blue may still be said to be affirmed, and thus may be used in the premise, as a premise. For example, here, all blue entities are X. Excuse me. John is a blue entity, therefore John is X. If you affirm that John is a blue entity, and even if you say, oh, well, it's contradicted by this one, it still stands. You can still use it as a premise. So let's go back. But what else did I write? Let's see what else I wrote. Okay, I'm going to get to that in a second. So let's see. So indeed, they believe that the attributes of Allah are not the same as Allah's essence. Point number 2. Anything which is not the same as Allah's essence is separate from Allah's essence. I said this is common sense. And what did he say? Oh, Habibi, you can't use common sense here. You have to prove your case. Okay, I'm going to prove my case. You really believe that it's not common sense? Okay, I'm gonna put it in a very simple way for you so you can understand. Because obviously it's not common sense for you. Okay. I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? And you know what? Forget it. I'm not gonna even read it when I wrote it down. That's how much of a silly statement he made. I'm just gonna go off by memory. Habibi, if something is not the same as something else, it is different from it. If something is different from something else, it is separate from it. Common sense. If you state that something is different from something else, then you're saying it's separate from it. And in fact, even the philosophers use this point, differentiation, to prove that this is the cause for multiplicity.
Shadi, it even goes back to the point of the Trinity, right? So you can say, how can 1 plus 1 plus 1 mean 1? They have a problem with the statement. Yet, their very supremacy is pretty much based on this concept as well.
I don't know what to tell these guys. I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to insult them, okay? Because I honestly, wallahi al-azim, I say this with complete sincerity. This is not fake humility. I want them to find the truth, and I want them to walk with me in paradise. I want these people to find the truth and walk with us in Jannah, inshallah ta'ala. I'm not saying that they're automatically going to hell because they believe God has hands and feet and sits in a chair and God has multiple essences and stuff like that. No. I'm not saying that you guys are automatically going to hell. But I'm saying is you will be questioned for it. And I don't want you to be questioned for it. Wallahi al-azim, may Allah curse me if I'm lying. In my heart, I want these people to find the truth and I want them to walk with us in paradise. And I want them to see where they're making mistakes. They're not. They have their defenses up. They're constantly, they act as if I'm attacking, their character or I'm attacking they as people. No, I'm not. I'm saying simply, you are wrong in this issue. Please do your research. Please reevaluate what you believe. So what do the philosophers say? They say that which is not the same as something is different from something. And that which is different from something is essentially separate from it. As differentiation in philosophy is the sole cause for multiplicity. Why are things different? Why are things separate? Why do we have multiple things?
Because they're not the same.
Because they're not the same. There is differentiation. Differentiation is the main reason why we have multiplicity. It's because they're different. If everything was the same, would we have multiplicity? Let's say everything is the same essence. It's unified. Will we have multiplicity? No, we will not. So for him to say, well, it's not common sense, you have to prove your case. With all due respect to you, brother, it is common sense. If something is different, it is not the same as it. And if something is not the same as it, then it is separate. Therefore, we leave to the third conclusion. The attributes of Allah are separate from Allah's essence. Am I stating that? You know what? You don't even have to use this syllogism to prove that. Let's go to what 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗏 al-Ash'ari says. He clearly says it. That's what's funny. He's trying to attack the syllogism, yet this is clearly what 𝗦𝗨𝗏 al-Ash'ari says. He says that, as I said before, 𝗦𝗨𝗏 al-Ash'ari clearly states that the attributes of Allah are additional or extra to the essence. And that which is additional or extra to an essence is not the same as said essence. It is not the same. If something is additional or extra to something else, it is separate. That's what additional means. It means it's added to it. It's not the same as it. If it was the same as it, you can't use the word additional. You can't use the word extra. It doesn't make sense. So what's funny is Fakhr al-Razi, by the way, he's an Ash'ari himself. What did he state? He said, إن النصارى كفروا لأنهم أثبتوا قدماء ثلاثة وأصحابنا أثبتوا 9 قدماء الذات والثماني الصفات. What did he say? أن النصارى كفروا لأنهم أثبتوا قدماء ثلاثة. The Nasara, the Christians, have committed kufr because they have what? They have affirmed 3 eternals. And ashabuna, the Asha'ira, they have affirmed 9 eternals, the essence of Allah, and 8 attributes. So this is what Al-Razi says. This is what Al-Razi says. So then, last syllogism. Let's see. What did he state? He said, "Oh, I'm not gonna even attempt to address this syllogism because you haven't defined God's essence." And then he used the word al-had al-haqiqi. Al-had al-haqiqi. Okay. Habibi, does God have a definition? Can anyone define God's essence? Of course not. God's essence is not defined. No one can know what God's essence is. No one can know or define or say God's essence is this, God's essence is that. The only thing that we can do is describe. The only thing we can do is say God's essence is all-powerful. God's essence is all-knowing. You cannot state what the essence is. According to all of the madhahib of Ahl Sunnah and the Shia, all of the Ahl Islam, they say God's essence is unapproachable. You cannot know. Abu Bakr said in his famous quote, he said, your incomprehension of Allah is your comprehension of Allah. That's what Abu Bakr said. So follow your Imam, Abu Bakr. So let's see. Only defined essences are eternal. The attributes of Allah are eternal. The attributes of Allah are separate from Allah's essence. This third point here I've proven and I've put it in. Therefore, the attributes of Allah are divine, separate, multiple, eternal essences. Habibi, you don't even have to use my syllogism. Forget it. Don't even use my argument. Go to what Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari says. What does he say? He says, الباري تعالى عالم بعلم قادر بقدرة حي بحياة وهذه الصفات أزلية قائمة بذاته تعالى لا هي هو ولا هي غيره. Then what else does the Ash'ari madhab say? They said موجودة, present, قديمة, eternal, زائدة, additional, separate. So I don't know what to say to these people, honestly. Whenever they try to attack our position, they switch sides and they try to say, well, you know what, we're gonna follow this school of thought now. We're gonna switch our positions, we're gonna change our methodology. You guys are inconsistent and you guys are unprofessional. You guys have to stay, honestly, you guys have, if you wanted to debate us, first of all, understand what we're stating and understand what you're stating. Understand what you believe and then try to understand what we believe. So now we're going to go into predestination. And then I'm going to give up the mic.
Before you do,
okay.
bro, to
sure.
be honest with you, I just wanted to bring up a statement of Ibn Khuzaymah on this particular topic. I can't do justice like the way you did in that response, mashallah. There's a lot of information that you gave there, and obviously it takes time to kind of take it in. So I would probably recommend viewers to perhaps watch that in 2 takes because there's a lot to take in. So yeah, I'm going to quickly screen share. You should be able to see my screen, and I just want to bring up a quote of Ibn Khuzaymah, and this was in reference to what they mentioned as well about the Quran being something that originated, muhdath. So, and he says, the Quran is the speech of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his revelation that he sent down. It's not created. Anyone who says that the Quran entirely or any part of it, like its revelation, is created, or says that the Quran is muhdath, something that came into existence, or that any of its attributes or names are created, he is from the Jahmi, one of the Jahmiya, whose repentance is not sought. If he does not repent, I would subject him to capital punishment. This is my position and the position of all the scholars from the Ahl al-Dar, reference to obviously the Sunnis, and he goes, I have seen from the east of the west, and this is from his book Al-Hakim 𝗡𝗢𝗙, as quoted by Ibn Taymiyyah in his book Tardud al-𝗦𝗨𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗡. So yeah, the reference is there. When it comes to the Quran and claiming that it's something which originated, even by their own standards, it's it's considered an innovation. I'll quickly just bring up the scan as well for the viewers to have a look in their own time as well. So it comes up. The screen's gone a bit. Sorry, give me a second. There you go. So it's come up on the screen, and I'm just quickly zoom up into the page number. There it is for you. And I'm just gonna bring up the page for the viewers as well. And then very quickly, I'll just pass on to Brother Ghadeer, so Ghadeer can add his point. Just give me a second, sorry. So that's the cover of the book, and that is the reference I just read out for you guys. So anybody who claims that the Quran is monotheists, as in originated according to the Salafi position, or according to the Sunni position, definitely they're considered to be innovators and even worthy of punishment. So I don't know, Shadi, if you want to say anything else before I pass on to Brother Ghadeer. Shadi, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Go ahead, please.
Ghadeer, you might as well come on the mic and inshallah give your response, and then we can carry on.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗡𝗦. Assalamu alaikum, guys. The predestination and the free will.
So I just wanted to point out that, like, obviously today's topic, I just wanted to make a quick point. So if you can,
if you want to, Sayyid, if you want to make the point, you can make it. Then I can continue afterwards.
Sure. Okay. So obviously, coming back to the topic, the topic of predestination and free will, it's one of the most important subjects in these discussions, and since it affects every one of us, theologians, scholars, philosophers, and many others have evaluated whether these, our actions are subject to change, or it's something that has been already preordained for us. One group of people were under the impression that our actions are predestined, and that all we're doing are basically, reaping the rewards of our test. Another group, they believed in the notion that we were just merely following the religious scriptures, and the conclusion that they made was that we do have man has the right to make certain choices in the life. So today's discussion, obviously, I didn't really want to go into the other issue about refutation or responses, but alhamdulillah, both you brothers, I think you hit the nail on the head. So let's come back to the topic of predestination and free will. What is your understanding of it, Brother Ghadeer? Go for it. Your mic. I think you need to unmute your mic.
Yeah, about tradition. If you want to ask, shall we start with the? Okay, I just want to start with our tradition. Just a minute. Okay, so according to our tradition, according to the Shia tradition about the predestination and the free will, we never go into either of the three. We never go that we say that every action or every of our actions are predestined by Allah, or we are given the complete authority of free will. We can do anything which we want, which is even unacceptable. For example, I can't, according to my own free will, can be, will that wherever I'm born, it is predestined that where I'm born, in which family, whether poor, rich, it is predestined. But how I want to live my life is according to my free will. That's why, Shaykh al-Mufid in 𝗡𝗢𝗧𝗦𝗢𝗡𝗦, he says that we believe that the correct doctrine is a middle course between the two extremes. The two extremes, al-Jabr, al-Tawhid. Hence, although Allah has enabled man to act by virtue of the capacity with which He has endowed him, nevertheless, He has imposed with this restriction, has delineated man's course of action, and has admonished him against reprehensible acts. Means what he was trying to say is that our position is between al-Jabr, predestined, or predetermined, and free will. While the Ash'ari, and I don't want to go to Ash'ari or something like that. I just want to mention, the verse of the hadith from Al-Bukhari and Muslim. It's very simple to make it, like for example, to see the contradiction which they have, about the position of the predestination and the free will. Then I will go to the Ibn Taymiyyah. Now in Sahih Muslim, there's a hadith from Aisha, and she said that the Prophet of Allah was invited to a funeral of a child from the Ansar. I said to him, there's happiness for this child who is a bird from the birds of heaven, for it committed no sin, nor did he reach the age of committing sin. Now the Rasulullah said, the opposite is the case, O Aisha. Indeed, Allah has created for paradise its people while they were in their father loin, and he has created hell its people while they were in their father loin. Okay, that's one narration. Now the second narration, Bukhari has narrated that a person asked Rasulullah, can the people of paradise be known from the people of hell? He said yes. The Rasulullah said yes. Then Rasulullah added, even if he didn't work for it, the person has asked for it, even if he didn't work for it, Rasulullah has replied, everyone does what he is created for or what is decreed for him to do. The problem with these narrations, what I find it, that is contradict the Quran. Clearly it's contradict the Quran. If you say, for example, if someone, wants to rape, or if someone wants to murder a person, and it has been decreed by Allah, then he's going to say that he is actually doing zulm to his own nafs. And it is decreed by Allah that he has to do that sin, then it's contradict the Quran in a sense. If you read the verse from the Quran, like for example, Surah Yunus, ayat number 44, that's the verse, Inna Allah la yuzlimun nasa shayya, walakinna an-nas anfusahum yuzlimun. Indeed, Allah does not wrong people in the least, rather it is the people who wrong themselves. Now the hadith says that the people of hell are being known if and decreed. The people of the paradise are being decreed. Even if anyone doesn't do anything, he will do anything what is decreed for him. So it's contrary to the Quran. There are many other verses, there are many other verses, like for example, Surah Nisa, number 40, Surah Al-Kahf, number 49, Surah Al-Imran, number 117. So this is the position of the Sunnis, because I don't want to go into saying that what the Ash'ari say, what the monotheists say, or the others say. I'm just referring to the hadith, which is, unanimously accepted by everyone, Bukhari and Muslim, and this is the position of the Quran. Now the other thing of Ibn Taymiyyah, should I read Arabic or I just go to the translation?
If you just go straight to the translation, I think that's what's more important.
It's much better. It will take more time. Okay, if we go to the translation, Ibn Taymiyyah, I just want to mention that what they are actually, before I just mention the position of the Ibn Taymiyyah. So what the Salafi used to say about Al-Qadr, because the problem is with the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they say that you have to believe in 6 things if you want to become a Muslim. You have to believe in Allah, Rasulullah, Malaika, and the day of Qiyamah, and his kitab, and the most important thing of all is Al-Qadr. So what actually they are meant by Al-Qadr, that's important. So Dr. Abdul Rahman al-Mahmoud, in his book, for example, Al-Qadr, on page number 39, he has mentioned that belief in Al-Qadr is based on 4 things: knowledge, writing, will, creation, and formation. Now about the knowledge, he has written Allah knows what his creation will do. We also accept that. Writing, Allah has written the destiny of all creation, Lahul Mahfuz, okay, we accept that. Will, that what Allah will happens, and what he does not will does not happen. Means he wants trying to say that there is no movement in the heaven, none on the earth, but it happens by his will. That's problematic. That's problematic. That's why I've mentioned. Now why it is problematic here is I just want to mention the narration. Let's say if you want to say that that everything goes by the will of Allah, then how will you reply to this Quran ayah in Surah Sajda, ayat number 13? وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَآتَيْنَا كُلَّ نَفْسٍ هُدَاهَا. Means what I'm trying to say, if we will, we can make every nafs, we have given every nafs his guidance. Means if we want, if we will, every nafs, every soul can be guided. Now here he says that, there's no movement without his will. While Allah said that if we, there means that there is a free will given to the human being also. And the fourth is creation and formation, that Allah is the creator of all things, including the action of his slaves. So you want to say that if a slaves do a bad thing, so Allah is the creator of that thing also. For example, if we do stealing, if we do murder, then he is also creator of all these things. While in the Quran, Allah itself say, الَّذِي أَحْسَنَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَ. He has created everything good. I don't understand. No, that's about the taqdeer, about the position of the taqdeer. What our scholars used to say, or for example, you can use the words, for example, مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ تَفَاوُتٍ. That Allah, that you will not find in the creation of Rahman any imperfection. The problem is when the person do kufr, when the person do stealing, when the person do murder, any of the bad deeds or evil deeds he do, there's an imperfection there. No one can say that the kufr is perfect, and then he said that having iman is also perfect. That's contradictory. So that's the position. And now regarding our own position, I just want to mention one narration from the Imam Musa al-Qadhi, when he was asked by Abu Hanifa regarding the question about the human actions and from whom they proceed. So he replied with three alternatives. He said that all the actions are from Allah, means all the actions are created by Allah, whether it's good, bad, reprehensible, or whether you want to recommend it. Or they proceeded jointly from man and Allah, or they are from man alone. Now Imam explained the position. Now if they were from Allah, that if all the deeds, if all the action the human do is all from Allah, whether the good or bad, then he alone deserves to be praised for his goodness or to be blamed for his baseness. And so for praise or blame for them pertain to none save him. He wants to say that if anyone do the good, if anyone do the bad, then he has to be blamed, he has to be praised. Why did Allah say that if you do a good deed, then it is written in your record and you will get a Jannah? What for what? If it all comes from Allah. Or he is trying to say the second position is, now if you say that Allah and the man are jointly proceed in it, then that position is also absurd, because now what's the position? Yeah, that's the position also absurd. For example, if a human did something wrong and he has to be punished with hellfire, and Allah is also jointly in it because he has created it, everything he has decreed it, he has predetermined it, then he also has to be punished. I don't understand. Not all the two alternatives, according to the Imam, are absurd. Then the Imam says that it is self-evident that the human action are all from men's. It rests with him if he pleases. He has the right to punish them for their wickedness, or if he pleases, he will pardon them. For the reward of piety or forgiveness is in hand. That's the position. Means the action of human being is given to them. Given to them means they were given the free will to do anything they want, and accordingly they are being accountable. Whether if they do good, they will be rewarded. If they do bad, they've been punished. Now I just come into the last point of Ibn Taymiyyah. That's very important. Now Ibn Taymiyyah al-Wasatiyah, on page number, what I have book with me is on page number 122. And Ibn Taymiyyah explained the view of Ahlul Sunnah actually, according to regard to the mandates. He says that people act in a real sense, and Allah is the creator of their actions. So whatever the people do, is the creator is Allah. A person may be a believer or kafir, righteous or immoral, he may pray or fast. People have control over their actions and they have their own will, and Allah is the creator of their control and will. And then he mentioned the verse of the Quran to say that to whomsoever among you who wills to walk straight, Surah Takwir, ayat number, for example, 28, 29. The problem here is he says that he's the creator of their control and of their will. That if he's the creator, yeah, he's the creator of everything. But in the second verse, Allah himself says in the Quran that he has created everything in a good or in a good manner. So the problem, what I find it, on one hand, they say that everything is created by Allah, good or evil, and he's predetermined. The second problem is they say that, in the Quran say that, Allah has created everything good. So how do we gonna reconcile the position here? That's my point. And yeah, you can continue now.
Yeah,
I will mention the other points later, inshallah. Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna pass on to Brother Shadi now because Ghadeer did mention the point about this video, which is currently being circulated, that suggests that Shia say that is God who causes rape. Shadi, do you want to come on and just give some elaboration on that?
Thierry, do you want to speak before I get
Yeah,
into it?
sure, pass it to Thierry.
Thierry, go ahead, brother.
Thierry's been quiet.
He's been waiting for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Perfectly.
yeah.
Perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, I'll maybe quickly also give my 5 cents before you get into your rape topic. Actually, I did some research and I find it kind of funny. You always hear about this logic this, logic that. Well, it might seem anecdotal, but whatever I find on the, at least the Ash'ari or Sunni position of this, usually goes like this. Well, we have like free choice, but we don't have free will, because as soon as we do something, then it's actually God doing this. So then you might say, well, what's the point in anything? Because it's all been decreed by God, because if God doesn't will it, then it will not happen. And then they say, well, but that's a misconception, because Quran says, while they first say that there isn't any free will based on Quran and their Sunnah, and next they say, well, does this mean there is no free will at all and nothing matters? Well, no, because Quran says, yeah. Well, no, you just proven that everything is one big nihilistic game and nothing matters. And if you then come with the Quran just to say, but here it says that you have to work and do good deeds, that's just that does not follow. And this is the only part where I've been able to really find any continuation in their theology and the Quran. If I have to put it like this, I mean, if you take a synoptic view, you take all the verses, it keeps bumping on where the Quran seems to contradict itself if you don't go a little deeper. Or if you, of course, don't use the hadiths from the Imams who go a lot deeper. Well, it's the same thing, with another big question, which you, of course, get with predestination and free will. That's why does God allow evil? And then you get like a wishy-washy answer. Well, nobody knows why, but God created tragedy and mystery to test the Muslims, to test the people, so that they can escape from it. And come on, that isn't really an answer on itself either. That's just pure conjecture. The thing that I would like to say would actually take a little bit too much time, but just two things maybe. One, this has been a big debate. We've spoken last time on the whole thing of the created and uncreated nature of the Quran. This was a political debate, as the Sheikh explained. Martin Luther, with the Christians, had the same thing happen to him when he, in the 16th century, wrote a whole epistle on free will, in which he said effectively, no, we do not have free will, and no, all good works you do are useless, because you have either already been chosen to go to heaven or you've been chosen to go to hell. And it became a whole political situation. This is why you currently still have part of Europe, mostly Germany, and Scandinavia being Lutheran, and the rest being Catholic or various Protestant things. So this has been a big debate, actually, and actually goes back even before the Trinity was established, 4th century. Before that, there was even many Gnostic Christians who had a very different way of looking at it. And that's the part I would like to emphasize a little, to broaden the horizons maybe. And for this, I can start quoting hadiths, but we are kind of running out of time. So I'll just say in 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗔 and many other places, these little gems are hidden, through which you can find something which can best be described as 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗡. You have maybe ever heard of 𝗡𝗢𝗧𝗑𝗢𝗧𝗜𝗍𝗍. Yes, this is Latin. I'm not speaking bad Arabic. This is Latin. 𝗡𝗢𝗧𝗑𝗢𝗧𝗍𝗍 means that God created everything from nothing, while 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗡 means that God created everything from chaos, from, like usually they say, the sea of chaos. From this everything originated. Both these series of creation you find in Genesis, the first verses of Genesis. You can find both. It depends on how you want to read it. Both you can actually also find in the Shia Islam, and mostly with the Gnostic Christians before the Trinity. They were very much into this, of course. So there are also some esoteric Jewish, but let's keep that aside. But with us, we also find this, and of course, we say there's the middle way. And if I now have to pronounce that in Arabic, maybe someone can correct me. But Amr Bain al Amr Rain, something like this. Yeah, the matter between two matters. This is not so much between free will and no free will, is between something that's more specifically called determinism. There is a determinism with us. You find it in the hadiths. You have the hadiths on the alien and decision. Alien and decision, I think, is only mentioned one time in the Quran, but in the more esoteric hadiths, the imams went very deep into this, early hadiths. You can find them in Al-Kafi also. These aren't a secret or anything, but here there's also there's talk of people being made in the pre-eternity, either of the alien or of decision. This determines not whether one is Muslim or not, but salvation is reached by being mu'min or not to the Shia, to the imams. This is where this we find here, and we also find the hadith also where the murky water is mentioned from which the light comes forth. And here we find the battle, and this is the final point I would like to say. Nowhere in the Quran can you really say that there is any battle within our theology between good and evil. Good and evil are concepts that we kind of have taken over from the Christians, but good and evil do not really exist. It's not really the way of the Kitab, you could say. If you take the whole Kitab, you will more likely find between the Jahl, ignorance, and Aql. So I'm getting insecure about my Arabic now, which is not just intelligence, which is more like nuclear consciousness, let's put it this way. Shia usually know these theories to most Sunni, this reductionism has already happened, and Aql is just intelligence. Well, it's a lot more than this, and this is the real dualism between Aql and Jahl. And actually, the theory of chaos, as opposed to that of creatio ex nihilo, from which all the problems arise, by the way. Creatio ex nihilo, if God created everything just out of nothing, why is there evil? Why is not everything heaven? Why do we have free will? This is all explained if you combine creatio ex nihilo. I'm not denying it. You combine it with God, who is at war with, and of course, it's not the supreme Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's it's its image which is at war with jahl, with ignorance. People are enemies from that which they do not know. As a famous hadith from Imam Ali, ﷺ. The real battle is not between good and evil to us. The real battle is between aql and jahl. And the continuous struggle we are faced with, this continuous jihad, is that of jahl needing to be infused with aql. And that's actually where we also find where free will comes from. This is also where we find where good and evil, as we usually know it, comes from. It's just that everything is chaos, everything is ignorance, and us Shia are here to infuse it with nuclear consciousness. So those are just my 2 cents I wanted to add, to go a little bit deeper. I can give the hadith if anyone is interested with all the references, but I won't start just reading off the lists I have in front of me right now.
No, that's brilliant. That was much appreciated. I think the references, you probably find them in Al-Kafi Volume 1, I believe. It's in either Volume 1 or 2, which is available online in English. If you
Ibn Buya, everything, yes.
Yeah, if you do a search on Al-Kafi PDF,
absolutely,
you find English version for those traditions which Brother Ghadeer mentioned. Shadi, can I bring you back on, inshallah, and I'll let you carry on with.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to get to the main topic of the video, which is predestination. For the people who want to really get into the first topic that I brought up, I spoke a little fast, so if you guys want, please pause the video, look through the arguments. I wrote it down for you. Really think about what I'm saying, because I did go a little quickly because I didn't want all the information to take a long time to state. I did that on purpose. So you guys take your time with the first part of the video, go through it slowly, think about it deeply, and really read what I wrote and try to invalidate it in your mind. Okay. So let's get to the main topic of the video, which is predestination. So I'm going to play audio from a person who posted a video titled Al-Ash'ari's Acquisition. God is a rapist, says Shia. So he's saying that basically the person in this video did indeed lie. He lied and said that we affirm that God is a rapist because we say he permits rape. That is a lie. We've never stated that. You are being dishonest and deceitful. And then he goes on to quote Kalam books in order to say that I did not represent the Ash'ari madhab correctly. So I'm going to correct him on a few things. He said Tawhid al-Ma'na and Ta'wil. He's basically trying to say that there is a disassociation between these two things. In fact, this is wrong. Tawhid al-Ma'na is in fact embedded within Ta'wil. They are not separate. They are the same. In the sense that Ta'wil relies upon Tawhid al-Ma'na. What do I mean by that? What am I talking about? You see, Ta'wil is only used by the Ash'ari when they do not have a certain text saying what the attributes of Allah mean. So they say, when they make Ta'wil, that this is the possible meaning of what we're stating. And we leave the true meaning, the certain meaning, to Allah. That is Tawhid al-Ma'na. And that is a part of Ta'wil. So this guy, with all due respect, he's trying to come off as if he knows what he's talking about. He's trying to come off as like, I'm misrepresenting the Ash'ari madhab. No, I'm not. I'm not misrepresenting it. What he does is, like I said, this is his style of debating. He will repeat the belief of a person, but in a dramatic way. Oh, you believe in 12 imams? Really? And then he'll stop there, and as if the statement itself is a refutation. No, Habibi, you have to prove why it is wrong. So let's go and listen to his audio. Let's see what he's stating. So I'm gonna unplug my microphone, my headset, and we're gonna listen from my speaker.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Let's watch an angry man's rant.
I'm angry.
Well, then they also have occasionalism. I don't think we touched on that. The fact that Allah is the one who is acting. Allah is the one who is astaghfirullah. He is the one who's committing the rape. He's the one who's creating the act of murder. the Ash'ari, they believe that Allah is the one who's the actor. We don't actually act. We just acquire the blame. But Allah is the one who does the act. He is the one who creates these acts. So that's why the Mu'tazila, they were so against the Ash'ari school, because they say that Allah is literally. I'm not being even metaphorical here. Literally creating and doing the act of rape, but we are the ones who accept and acquire the blame. So a lot of people don't understand that this is the Ash'ariya school and what they say. The Salafis, same thing. They say that God willed evil, or God predetermined or predestined evil to happen. Well, then why does God punish us if we didn't have a choice?
Yes.
If we didn't have a choice, then why would we get punished for it? Why didn't Allah just create heaven and hell and put us in it?
Let's put everyone straight in there.
If He knew the future. Exactly. If Allah knows the future, He knows what we're going to do. Why doesn't He just? Why all this tests? Why didn't He just put us in Jannah and put the rest in Jahannam and call it? That's it.
So we have this guy who's presenting a Mu'tazili argument. He's saying that according to the Ash'aris, God is a rapist, and God is evil, and God is this. Why? Why do they say that? Because Ahl Sunnah believe that God created everything. And so obviously, if somebody, rapes somebody, then God has created that.
So you guys hear that? He affirms what we said. You guys can use your microphone, by the way. 1 second before you do, let me plug it in so you guys can comment on that. So, what do you guys think about what he said, that God created rape? What's your opinion on that?
Can I? Sorry, I'm going to bring the Thierry back on.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
I don't understand this guy. I mean, what is he? I mean, somebody said earlier that this guy is not an Ash'ari, but then he comes on.
He's saying that he's not an Ash'ari.
Yeah, then he tries to come on. He defends the Ash'ira, even though his own scholars have condemned the Ash'ira and don't consider them to be from the Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Yeah. Yeah. So it makes you think it is just totally random. Why? He might as well just come on and defend the Hindu concept of God. It's just bizarre.
Can I make one comment before, guys? We have been making 3 videos with our focus being on the Salafi school.
Yeah.
They have every single video they have made has been so far on the Ash'ari school, even though we only spent 20 minutes maybe on the Ash'ari school. Why is it that they don't actually answer the people about the Salafis?
I know.
Why don't you guys? You guys, okay, you're not an Ash'ari, fine, Hani, whatever. You're not an Ash'ari, okay, fine. The majority of your team, however, are Salafis. Why haven't you guys spoken about the Salafi sect? Why don't you guys quote or comment on Ibn Uthaymeen, who says Allah has a shadow and runs? Why don't you guys actually go look? We're sitting here talking about Ash'ari school. I mean, why don't you guys actually tell us? Is it true? What are you? What is your sect? What do you believe? Do you believe God has fingers? Do you believe God has hands? Do you believe God sits on a chair? Do you believe God has feet? And do you believe God puts his foot on top of the hellfire? Do you believe God jogs? What do you believe? Do you believe this? Will you please quote these scholars we are quoting and explain to us? You guys are cowards. Honestly, with all due respect, I'm not trying to insult you, but you guys are acting like cowards. Why don't you explain to us what is the belief of Ahl Sunnah? What does Ahl Sunnah believe? If you are defending the Ash'aris, then why aren't you an Ash'ari?
Yeah.
If you are defending the Ash'ari school and you're claiming that all these misconceptions are wrong, all their famous positions which they are attacked for is wrong, we didn't get it right, then why aren't you an Ash'ari? If you're not a Salafi, okay, and you're not a Maturidi, and you're not an Ash'ari,
why?
What are you?
It seems as if they basically anything but a Shia. So whatever the 12ers will believe, right? They'll become they'll become an Athari. So they'll just pick and choose.
They say that we are.
What about you,
They
Thierry?
say that we are.
Sorry, go ahead, Burad. How do you go ahead? Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
I want to say that there are so many schools in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that they jump from one school to the other school, whatever their position can be, perfectly defended. So if they see that the Ash'ari says this, and it can be defended from the Shias, they jump to Ash'ari. They become one day Ash'ari, one day Mu'tazili, one day Asari, man, just fix on one thing. You're defending Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What is actually, you don't even know what Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And regarding the rape thing, it's really, disgusting and reprehensible that you say that Allah actually.
Can I just bring up a quick quote? I just want to share something on the screen for you, brother, so you can read it for yourself.
Yeah, I just want to use that same thing. Sure, Taylor, you can do this.
So this is this reference is from 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦 the famous by 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦. So, bro, can you just mute your mic because it's interfering with the sound? The book's available online. You can get the PDF version. You can Google it; it'll come up. And on the issue of rape, well, and even adultery, let me show you something interesting. So this is from 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦, and it's on page. Checking the page number should come up. Oh, give me a minute. I'll have to get you the page number. If you bear with me. But yeah, the tradition is found here, and it says, I'll zoom up.
Page number 88.
Yeah,
page number 88, actually.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. So it says, Al-Layka narrated in a Sunan that Ibn Umar said, a man came to Abu Bakr and said, do you see adultery as a decree of God, decree of Allah? Abu Bakr said, yes. The man replied, so Allah has decreed it for me, and then later he will punish me for it? So the man made a very valid point, right? He's saying, now look, Allah decreed me to do this adultery. Why is he punishing me for it? In which Abu Bakr replied, yes, son of an uncircumcised woman. I don't know how he knew this man's mother was uncircumcised, but he goes, yes, son of the uncircumcised woman. By Allah, if there was anybody with me, I would order him to cut off your nose. So, adultery, rape, all these things, according to them, is decreed by Allah. And, you'd expect Abu Bakr to give some sort of evidence to support his claim here. But, his response was basically, I'm going to cut your nose off. It was more of a threat because he felt embarrassed. Let's be frank, the guy put him on the spot. He couldn't even defend his own ideological beliefs that, he resulted to making a threat against him. And
also, laziness seems also to be a decree of Allah because Abu Bakr didn't feel the need to cut his nose off himself. He only would have done it if somebody was with him.
Yeah, that's true as well. That's another valid point as well. I didn't even think of it in that way. Shadi, do you want to come back on and make a quick point?
I just want to make one point. Reminded, you have mentioned from their books that Abu Bakr said that it is decreed by Allah. Now, what our Imams used to say about, attributing something like this reprehensible to Allah. The hadith is found in 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗦, and the hadith number is 398. And the sixth Imam Ja'far 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗧 said that he who thinks that Allah ordained vileness, means something evil, have actually attributed falsehood to him. And he who thinks that good and evil emanates from Allah has also attributed falsehood to him. Means you cannot say that the evil also comes from Allah, the good also comes from Allah. It's really a tricky question.
How do you reconcile with the verses in the Quran then? For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, I guide who I please, I misguide who I please. So can we say that Allah is
no, yeah. If you want to use this words that Allah said that I guide and misguide, Allah is trying to say that one who trying to gain guidance, one trying to come to the path of guidance, I guide them. But one who's arrogant, like Abu Jahl, he comes forward and says that I will not become Muslim. So Allah says that if he chooses the path of misguidance and become arrogant and staunchly arrogant over it, then I will misguide them. It doesn't mean that Allah misguides and guides. It's up to our will that we choose the path of guidance, so he will guide us. If not, then he will leave us in misguidance. Then some people, says the same thing again. I just want to use the same verse. Just bear with me. The people, says that, regarding the evil, that Allah has created evil also. So I have used the same verse again. Where's the verse gone? Anyway, that's gone. Yeah. Got it. Look, so in the Quran itself, Allah in the Quran itself, Allah says, "الَّذِي أَحْسَنَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَهُ." The problem with this verse, if we believe that the evil has emanated from Allah, then how do you want to reconcile with this verse? Or for example, the second verse I have mentioned it, that he has clearly stated that you will not find any perfection in his system, in his creation. And these rape or murder or kufr, everything is imperfection. That's why we are being punished for it if we, try to follow it. So how do you? So and one point, Abu Bakr say, it is decree of Allah. The Quran says that Allah has created everything good, and you will not find anything imperfection. So I don't understand whether we take the hadith or whether we say the Quran. And by the way, such type of narration is also found in Bukhari and Muslim also. I have mentioned it, in my previous session, that when Aisha says that a child has died and the Rasulullah says that, people of the heaven and hell has been predetermined.
I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to finish off with one quick reference before I pass on to Brother Shadi. If you just give me a second.
Yeah,
this
sure.
is another interesting reference as well. And this is from Bukhari. I'll just bring it up on the screen for you guys so you can see it. And this is from Sahih Bukhari, the online version, and it's in volume 5, book 59, hadith number 61. And it's a pretty interesting tradition, and it's on what occurred on the day of Hunayn. And it's narrated by Abu Qatada. When it was the day of the Battle of Hunayn, I saw a Muslim man fighting with one of the pagans, and another pagan was hiding himself behind a Muslim in order to kill him. So I hurried towards the pagan who was hiding behind the Muslim to kill him, and he raised his hand to hit me, but I hit his hand and cut it off. That man got hold of me and pressed me so hard that I was afraid that I was going to die. Then he knelt down and his grip became loose, and I pushed and killed him. The Muslims, expecting the Prophet and some of his companions, started fleeing, and I too fled with them. Suddenly I met Umar ibn Khattab amongst the people, and I asked, "What is wrong with the people?" He said, "It's the order of Allah." So even Umar, when he was fleeing battle, right, he used this excuse. The reason why he was fleeing from battle, it was because it was Allah who ordered it, and it was Allah who ordered him to do so. Shadi, can you come on the mic, bro?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, okay.
Okay, great. So I'm not going to play all of his video. Oh, sorry, can you guys hear me? Sorry. I'm not going to play all of his video. I'm just going to basically mention what he stated in his video. So he said that the people have a choice, that Allah is the only one who... Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you come through.
Sorry, I wanted... Okay, so I'm going to continue. So I'm not going to go through everything his video says. I'm just going to, like I said, mention some of the stuff he said. He said that the choice is for the servant, that Allah does not create the choice, that Allah only creates the action. So I have a question for him. The creator of the action, is that person the doer of the action, or is he not the doer of the action? If an entity creates an action, is that entity not the doer of it? So you're stating in your video that God creates rape. What do the Ash'ari actually believe? He stated it in a soft way, but I'm going to actually explain it specifically what they believe. What they say that the motion and movement of the rape is created by God at the very moment it's taking place. So God is literally taking two people and putting them together and raping. God is creating the action. God is creating the motion. There is no action or power except God in this, and according to the Ash'ari, in the sense that God is the only one who creates.
And if I may, this is what I was
Sure.
saying actually.
Sure.
The Lutherans say exactly the same thing, but they are consistent in what they say. They literally say there is no free will. There isn't any. It's God doing everything.
Yeah.
While the Ash'ari, then they say this, but then they say, oh, but you have to do good works because this ayat and this ayat, so you have to do good work. Even though this contradicts what we were just saying, but here's the ayat. And I cannot understand this logic of how they can make these jumps in logic.
Exactly. So then he says that the choice is for the servant. God only creates the action after. Habibi, even if you say the choice is for the servant, you are still saying that the servant did not do the action. You're saying that Allah is the one who created the action. Therefore, the doer of the creator of an action is the doer of the action. You can't say that, okay, God is creating an action for someone, therefore they're doing it. No. God is the one who is creating rape. God is the one who's creating the motion of it. God is the one who is grabbing them, putting them together, creating the motion, creating the thoughts, creating the evil that's taking place. That is why the Mu'tazila have rejected it. That's why the Shia our Imams have rejected that. We don't say that God creates something like that. Astaghfirullah. That God is literally creating the motion of rape. He said that we say that Allah is astaghfirullah creating or raping someone because we say that He permits it. No, we didn't say that. You are lying and you are trying to put one second. You are lying and you are trying to put words in our mouth, and you are making a straw man then attacking it. What else does he quotes Ash'ari scholar. So I'm going to quote an Ash'ari scholar as well and see what he says. What did he say? He's in his Al-Sharif al-Durjani and his Sharh al-Mawaqif. He says on page 146, volume 8, he says, the actions that pertain to choice manifest by the power of Allah alone. Their ability have no effect in it. Their power have no effect in it. Allah is the only one who places in the servant ability and choice. He doesn't just say ability and choice. So both the choice and the actual action is actually created and placed inside the servant. Why? Because choice itself, ikhtiyar, is also considered an action. It's considered from the actions of Allah according to the Ash'ari. So they have something called iktisab. Al-iktisab or kasab is basically the servant earns or acquires the blame for this action, because this is what they say. They say that God is the creator of all actions. The choice is also an action and thus is also created by God. The action itself along with the choice are both created by Allah. The person has a choice from acquisition. They acquire it, the blame for it, because Allah knew from eternity what the choice of a person would be, and thus both the choice and action are created for them. So basically, the Ash'ari say that Allah already knew what you were going to do. He already knew that you were going to rape this woman. So God created the choice and He created the action for you, and therefore it took place. So when the Ash'ari say that they're not majbur, that someone is not majbur, they're not forced to do the action, this is what they mean. This is what they're stating. They're not stating that there is an actual choice, which is an action from ourselves being created. No. So what is the problem with this? Number one, you are saying that God is the doer of rape because you're saying He created rape directly. You're saying that God is the doer of murder and other evil acts, as He is the one who creates directly the motion and movement of rape or murder while the rape or murder is taking place. This is disgusting. This is a disgusting belief that God is literally creating rape there. He's creating the motion, He's creating the movement, and He's creating the crime. What else is the problem with this? And here's the main problem. The action cannot be punished, since in reality, the person did not commit the action. You just stated that God created the action. So how can we have committed it when we have not created it? How can we commit an action which we have not created?
It goes back to the point of Abu Bakr, what the man was saying.
Exactly.
You know, that man, he sounded like a Shia to me, perhaps. He was asking that question, you know? So yeah, carry on.
I don't know, man.
Let me maybe try to distill that video. I saw it, just to distill his logic. Because he said literally, glass of water, you decide to take the glass of water. God wills it and allows me to do so, so this is God. Okay. If not, then the glass would have disappeared. Okay. Then he says, rape. So he's trying to make kiyas. He's doing an analogy. Okay, you decide to rape that girl, hypothetically. If God didn't want this to happen, like with the glass, he literally said half a minute before that would drop. I would not be able to get it because God wouldn't have willed it. If I decided to rape a girl, God didn't want it to happen, I wouldn't have been able to rape it, he would have blocked it. This he literally said. He shouldn't have come up with the example of the glass.
I mean, can you really escape? I mean, for hundreds of years, this debate has been going on. For 1,000 years, actually. I mean, I don't know how long.
So,
go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
No, if you want to add it, I just want to add our own tradition. They say that the action is created by Allah. We actually say that it is in the knowledge of Allah. The action is not created by Allah, that's rape or murder. It is done by the human himself, but it is in his knowledge, in his Allah's knowledge. That
I'm going to explain the Shia position on this.
If you can do that.
Okay, so I'm going to explain to you guys the Shia position on all of these things after we're done talking about what their position on this is. So what's wrong with saying that God creates the action of servants? And that there's actually a word for this called occasionalism. Ghazali, who was an Ash'ari scholar, was the one who actually formulated this in a systematic manner and propagated this belief of occasionalism. Occasionalism states that there is no such thing as causality. There is only correlation. So when fire burns cotton, it is not because of the efficacy of fire. It is because God only decides that cotton is burned once fire is next to it, not that fire is actually causing it to burn. That's what they say. No such thing as causality, only correlation. When I was an Ash'ari, when I was a Sunni, I would study the books of Ghazali, and I would study the books of Al-Razi, and I would study the books of all of these scholars, and they would always tell me, constantly tell me, there is no creator of action except God. We would be constantly told this, that there is no creator of action except God. God is the one who creates. God is the one who does. We don't do anything. There is no power except God. And they explain this in the sense that there is not even action committed except by God. They even use a verse from the Quran where it states that you did not throw the arrows, we threw the arrows. And they actually use this verse as a proof that even in war, God is the one who was fighting. God is the one who was literally causing the arrow to be shot from the bow. It's called occasionalism. Go ahead, folks, and look it up. Ghazali is the one who propagated this belief. So what's the problem with this? The problem is this. I'm going to ask you guys a question. If Allah knew everything that we were going to do before we did it, then why didn't he just create us in heaven and hell? If he already knows that you're going to sin, he already knows that you're going to do this, he already knows the results of everything, so why go through all this? Why test us when he already knows the answer? The reason is this: because there cannot be a manifest punishment or reward without a manifest action in reality. That is why. If you did not do an action, God cannot reward or punish you for it. As simple as that. There must be a manifested doer of an action in order for there to be manifest punishment or reward. There is no other answer to this question. That's the reason why we live in dunya. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the only reason why we're talking about. This is the only reason why we exist right now, is to manifest actions where Allah can punish or reward them. So that is the whole point of dunya. That is the whole point of religion. That's the whole point of being tested. Not because Allah doesn't know what you're going to do. He tests you because he wants you to manifest these actions, and he wants to punish or reward you accordingly. When the Ash'ari comes and says, oh, well, we don't do any actions, we only acquire them, then what's the point? What is the point of religion? What is the point of being tested? I want to read a hadith from Bukhari, which completely refutes what they're saying. I'm going to read from Bukhari. It says, verily Allah has written down the good deeds and the evil deeds, and then explained it by saying, whosoever intended to perform a good deed but did not do it, then Allah writes down with himself as a complete good deed. And if he intended to perform it and did perform it, then Allah writes it down with himself as from 10 good deeds up to 700-fold. up to many times multiplied. And if he intended to perform an evil deed, but did not do it, then Allah writes it down with himself as a complete good deed. And if he intended it and then performed it, then Allah writes it down as one evil deed. I have a question. Rasulullah is saying here, sallallahu, that if you do not perform the deed, if you think of the deed, if you choose to do it, if you intend to do it, yet you do not do the evil deed, then Allah doesn't even punish you. In fact, He rewards you for not doing it. Let me read that again. If you intend to perform the evil deed but do not do it, then Allah writes it down with Himself as a complete good deed. Exactly. So even if he chooses to do a bad deed but doesn't do it, Allah rewards him. I have a question. Please answer this correctly. Please think about this question. The person who's listening to my voice right now, the person who wants to respond to me and make another video after 4 videos you've made, listen to my question, and I challenge you please to answer this in your next video. If someone is creating an action, is he the doer of the action or not? If you say yes, then you're saying that Allah is the doer of the action. If you say no, quit your job in philosophy, because you're not going to find a job anywhere soon. That's all I have to say on that. So,
if I can maybe just add 30 seconds for any Sufi who might be listening to this, because what you just touched upon is very important. Any Sufi who is listening to this, because what's the big difference between Sufi Shia? Sufis believe in existential monism. There is no dualism to them. To us, everything is dualism. To them, there is God, there is creation. Sufi will say there is only God. All else is illusion, to put it very simple, monism. What you just said, there is no point. There is no point in our existence. There is no point in religion if you cannot get closer to God. You were talking about doing good deeds and this and that, but even getting closer to God. If there is monism, if everything is an illusion, if everything is done by God, there is no way you can get closer to God. You have been spat out by God, and you are coming back into God, because everything is already God apparently. So it makes the whole thing pointless, and that's the biggest critique you can have on Sufism, by the way.
So do you guys want me to go into the actual Shia belief, what we believe? You guys want to explain it?
Yeah, please do. I mean, I recall a brief hadith from Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam. I hope I didn't quote that. I hope that was the one you were going to quote.
Yeah, I have to.
You can close with that. So I'm just gonna explain the Shia belief on the attributes of God and all that stuff. Okay, so they keep saying in their videos, oh, the Shia is saying that Allah has power, therefore we're saying that Allah has partners. No, we never said that. We stated that if you say God has power while at the same time separating it, as I've shown in the first arguments in the syllogisms in the first part of the video, if you say God has power and then you state that it is separate from His essence, and then you state that it is eternal from His essence, and then you state that it is multiple, what are you doing? You are stating that there exists besides God's essence, which is not the same as His essence, entities which are eternal and besides God. So this is what we mean when we say you can't say that God has power or a power in the sense that it is separate from His essence. Does God have power? Absolutely. Does God have knowledge? Absolutely. But what do you mean by that? Are you saying that there's like a little database stored by His essence where there's knowledge and it is other than His essence? No. The person who was responding to this, I believe his name, I'm not going to mention his name, he said that I didn't understand what Shadi was saying, really. You don't understand what I'm saying? If you don't understand what I'm saying, then why are you responding to it? This is the famous position of the Shia. I'm not stating anything new. I'm not stating anything revolutionary or something I made up myself. This is the position of the entire madhab of the Shia, and you're stating that, oh, I don't understand it. Then why are you responding to it? So again, we believe that God is all-knowing, all-knowledgeable, all-seeing, all-hearing, He is the reason for everything. He is the ultimate cause. There is nothing like Him. He has no place. He is not on top of a chair. He created all places. He is above all places. He cannot even be, not even a little bit of the comprehension of human beings can even come close to understanding what Allah is. He said, define what God is. Define God's essence. What a foolish statement. Please define for me God's essence, or I'm not going to debate with you. That's how they speak. And what else? He said that it's not proven that there are other things besides God which are he said that there can be things besides God which are eternal. completely ridiculous. Another thing I want to close with. What do the Shia say about predestination and free will? What we say is this: neither this nor that, leave it to God. There's a famous hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Someone asked Imam Ali, what do you say about predestination? Is it predestination or free will? Imam Ali alayhi salam said, neither this nor that. So the man asked Imam Ali, can you please demonstrate to me what you mean, because I really don't understand what you're saying. So Imam Ali alayhi salam told him, stand up on both your feet. So he stood up. And then Imam Ali alayhi salam said, lift up one leg. So the man lifted up one leg. He's standing there with the second leg on the ground. Then he said, lift up your second. The man said, I can't. Imam Ali said, this is exactly what I mean. Some things are in your power. God lets you choose it. Some things are not. But in the end, ultimately, everything goes within God's plan. That is how it works. God does not create rape, ya habibi. God does not create murder. God does not create babies being thrown into the rivers. God does not create babies, the action of a woman putting a baby in the oven. God does not create suicide bombers throwing themselves in the masjid, blowing themselves up. This is not the actions of God. Shame on you for saying this. Shame on you for trying to lie to the people in a deceiving way and trying to spread things about God which is not true. And you stood there with a straight face saying that God creates rape. He says that I'm an angry man. If someone said that about your dad, if someone said your dad committed rape or did rape or created rape, how would your reaction be? Would you not be angry? You're saying that Allah, the Creator, committed rape and all of these things. Of course I'm going to be upset when you say that. So have some respect for yourself. Have some dignity. And be a man and admit and answer the question. Is God the doer of rape? Yes or no? You say that God creates rape. So answer the question. Is he a doer of rape as well? Is he the one doing the rape? Astaghfirullah. Even the discussion is ridiculous, honestly, with all due respect. Look what we're at. We're talking about whether or not God creates rape or not.
I know.
Anyways, guys, I'm gonna let you guys wrap it up.
It's extremely.
I just want to say one thing, bro, because I have to leave it for Salah. And their position, they say that the God created. Charlie has explained it beautifully that God has created the evil deeds or the rape or everything. I don't understand. I don't want to mention the hadith. I just have to, even within the Quran itself contradict their own position. Like, for example, if you read in the Quran, for example, Surah Nisa, ayah number 140, the Allah say that, Inna Allah la yuzlimu misqala zarratin wa in taku hasanatuhu yuda'ifha yu'ti min ladunhu ajran azima. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that, in this ayah, he said that indeed Allah does not wrong anyone, even to the extent of an atom weight, even to the extent of misqala zarratin. So when they say that the God has created evil actions, and God, actually compel people to do it, Allah, because when you do something evil, you are actually doing a zulm on your nafs. And Allah says that we do not do even an atom of a weight of a zulm on a person. So it's contradictory to the Quran itself. Then you comes to the hadith of the Imam al-Baqir, Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. Because I want to leave it, so just I mentioned it one thing, and then I have to leave it. Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam was asked by Al-Hasan bin Ali al-Wahsha that he inquired that has Allah entrusted to his slaves all their affairs? The Imam replied, Allah is far above this. Then he asked, has Allah compelled men to commit sin? The Imam replied, Allah is too just and too wise to do this. Then the Imam added, Allah says, O son of Adam, I deserve your good deeds more than you yourself, and you deserve your vices more than I myself. You have committed sin through the power and authority I have granted to you. So that is our position, that the person do its own deed through his own power granted to by Allah, but Allah hasn't created the evil. Allah has given them power. They do it with their own free will. He hasn't created any evil deed. At the second position is, whenever they do the evil deed, it is in the mashia, it is in the knowledge of Allah. That's the true position of the Shia, rather than saying that, Allah has created it, rape, murder, everything, kufr, contradicting the Quran and the whole of your aqidah. That's ridiculous. So, Sayyidari, I have to leave for the salah.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
So,
and I think I'm going to wrap it up on that. I think this whole series of what we did on Tawhid, we just really touched the surface. Assalamualaikum. So so I think we're going to wrap up from here. But the main point is that with this series of Tawhid, we discussed, we primarily focused on Sifat al-Khabariyah. Those were the attributes of God, which, if we take them to be literal, we end up falling into anthropomorphism. And I think within these shows, we've discussed the various arguments which are used and presented, and we've stated what the Shia position is. We stated what the Ash'ari position is, the Athari position, and as you can see, the viewers, with the information we've given you guys, I think you can all draw your own conclusions to who's presenting the stronger side of the argument here. And this leads on to why Adala, within the fundamental beliefs of the Shia, you have Tawhid, Adl, Nabuwa, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧. Once we've covered the topics of Tawhid, which we have done in our shows, this automatically links into Adala, which is the justice of God. And this is why Shias deem it necessary and an essential part of their faith and religion, and the core foundation of the belief, to believe in Adala, and that is that God is the just, he's the all-just individual. If he tells us to enjoy good, he also tells us to forbid evil. And had evil been a creation of God himself, then essentially we would be, God forbid, would be condemning God himself for being the causer and the source of evil. So yeah, I'm going to wrap up from here, guys, and thank you very much for being patient. I think we covered quite a bit today. It is slightly exhausting topic, so yeah, I mean, by all means, take your time out and watch this video over a course period of time. I don't think you can watch it all in one go because there is a lot to take in. But yeah, so thank you very much, viewers. Assalamu alaikum.